Merry Christmas, everyone. This video is designed to allow you some space and to take it easy on yourself. And in a way, just to free you from your own mind. As I continue to pursue or walk the spiritual path or the path of awakening, it's amazing how much one learns and how far one can progress over time just by being patient and being steadfast and just continuing along where your intuitive self leads you. And I find that the moment I start to go off the path, there's discord or uneasiness within me. And one of the things I've learned, if you compare some of my older videos to the more current videos, is the more I learn, the more I realize how much the mind in our societal and emotional conditioning, especially when we're young, affects who we are in our behavior. And I've steered away or veered away from the idea of God and spirit and all, the new age stuff that at one point I was caught up in and thought was, the answer. And really stripping all that away has allowed me to simplify my self-discovery and understanding who I am and what motivates me and how to change behavior, how to be more content, relaxed, and feeling at ease, at peace. I think that's what, when it comes down to it, that's what we all really want, is just a sense of peace, a sense that we can breathe and everything is just okay with the world, okay with ourselves, okay with others, and not have this constant turmoil or discord of clashing with who we truly are and clashing with others and clashing with our expectation of what we should be, what our life should be, and all these things. It's just to breathe and relax and allow life to be as it is. It's a very easy concept to grasp, but so hard and difficult to implement. One of the things that I'm becoming more and more aware of, let's say, is that we are a product of our conditioned mind. And I've taught children as young as 5, 6, 7 years old, and even at that age, I could see the type of personalities that they're going to develop into. Like their mold has already been set. Who they are. You have the ones that are going to be the nerds, the popular ones, the ones that are shy, the ones that are confident, the ones that are outspoken, the ones that are attention seekers, the ones that are too hard on themselves, perfectionists. All these things you could see at a very young age, and you could just see them progress and fill this mold that has been cast for them. So a lot of it, the question is, how much free will do we really have? Because like a computer is programmed and it will just do the functions it has been programmed to do. So if a virus enters a computer, it's not the computer's fault. It's going to have those innate weaknesses and disabilities based on that virus. And because we're all raised by humans and by an imperfect world and a society that has alternative goals for our lives. In other words, its goal is to not make us go against the grain. It's to conform, it's to be more docile, it's to fit in with the system. You've got to create human beings that are not going to rock the boat, because otherwise you'll just have chaos and they're very hard to control. And that includes parents with children, things like that. So really, in our formative years are the years that our personality was shaped and developed to who we are today. was not programmed ideally. It was programmed by people that had their own best intentions in mind, for better, for worse, and we're going to pass on those same traits most likely to our children and the youth we come in contact with. And one thing I've learned, or one of my professors said, is that the personality is basically shaped or formed between the ages like 1 to 5. Some say 1 to 7. Okay, so taking all that into account, it's time to go easy on ourselves, because we are only a product of that conditioning. And in many ways, it's unavoidable. We can't act in any other way than the way that we have been conditioned. Just like people in North Korea have been conditioned to believe, to revere the leader, even though the leader represses them and keeps them down and things like that. It's just life. It's just the process of being human. But what we tend to do is we personalize it. We personalize that conditioning and we say, that's who I am. I'm an insecure person. I'm a shy person. I'm a confident person. I'm a great sports player. I'm bad at math. All of these things have been internalized and just continue into adulthood. And instead of personalizing it, beating ourselves up about it, being hard on ourselves, saying, woe is me, why can't I do this right? Why can't I stick to a diet? Why can't I stick to an exercise plan? Why can't I earn more money? Why can't I be more honest with people? We just have to sit back and say, okay, the mind builds connections. You create a habit. You learn to, for example, play the piano. And you learn to play the piano in the beginning. You have to really concentrate and focus, and it's a lot of conscious mind is thinking and concentrating and working at building connections within the mind. And then if you do it and repeat it and practice it enough, it becomes second nature, where you don't have to think about it. It just flows right out of you. And our habits or personality is the same way. It's something that is on autopilot. And if something's on autopilot, why? Why are we so hard on ourselves? And identify that that's who we are. No, that's just the way the connections and the neurons and the mind has ingrained this habit within us, or this way of living or way of thinking. And I've taught people many different things in the education system, many different subjects. And one of the things that I've learned is that people, for example, when I'm teaching people to speak English, teaching them about English, and it's their second language, and they haven't had strict or really controlled practice from the beginning when they started to learn English, that everyone has ingrained habit patterns, ingrained mistakes or errors. And something as simple, the third person singular, saying she watches TV, instead of what a lot of people say, she watch TV, and they'll forget to add the S to the third person singular noun. He eat dinner. He eats dinner. Okay? So things like this. And what I'll find is that people will continue. I'll tell them, I'll bring it to their conscious awareness, hey, this is a mistake, and you need to say this, or you need to do this. But those errors that have been so ingrained with them that haven't been corrected, haven't been fixed early on in their language learning, is so difficult to change. Even though I'll tell them, I could tell the same mistake 50 times and still they'll repeat the mistake. So how do you think we as human beings, even if we're not learning a second language, we have these same ingrained, repeated, almost unmovable behaviors and characteristics? And so just giving ourselves some space and some patience and saying, oh, okay, there, I didn't recognize that's who I am. I recognize an ingrained habit pattern. Instead of beating yourself up, oh, there goes my ingrained habit pattern. When I drive in traffic, I get stressed. When I talk to a superior, I feel nervous. When I do things, I want to do them perfectly. And looking back and saying, okay, as a child, I had a very hard or controlling or perfectionist parent, teacher, and my mind adapted that it's better to get this approval and strive for perfection, beat myself up, instead of getting this backlash or this resistance if I don't live up to the other person's standards, especially as a child. I mean, that's really the goal, is to please and to seek pleasure instead of pain. And so your mind develops these patterns, these ingrained behaviors in order to do that. Now, what do we do with all that? Is all hopeless? No, not all hopeless, but I don't give 100% credence to the expression that we all have free will and we can choose whatever we want. Really, we don't. We all have free will based upon what our programming has been. Now, we have free will to change our programming, to consciously say, okay, I want to change this repeated habit pattern or behavior. I don't want to continue acting unconsciously or acting automated. Another great example is Patch Adams' movie Patch Adams, where he talks about people's conditioned responses. Like when you say, hi, how are you? Fine. It's so conditioned. When I worked in the restaurant industry, I would just say, good afternoon, and people say, fine. Fine, thank you. And it's so conditioned, I wouldn't even ask them how they were, and they'd have this ingrained habit. And we have thousands and thousands and thousands of these. So what we need to do is habit pattern disruptor. So we have these connections, that when someone says good morning to many people, some people might be conditioned. They're so conditioned to how are you that they'll respond fine. So, or the student that forgets to say he watched TV, they'll say he watched TV and forget to use the past correctly. So this is condition in the mind. It's just triggers and fires automatically. So what we need to do is create an interrupter, a habit pattern interrupter, and break this habit. And so with my students, if I'm teaching a student English, in the beginning it'll be verbal. So I'll say he watch TV, and then with time they'll recognize it, and then they'll make the same mistake 2 minutes later again, and then I'll lower the interrupter. So then it'll be maybe just a hand going back to indicate that they need to speak in the past. Then it will be maybe just a look. So all these goals is to create a disruptor, like an electrical current. You're creating a disruption, or like the beaver that builds a dam. You're creating a disruption to this flow that normally is automated. And so some things to try with yourself is to start breaking automated responses. So when you're driving to work, you always take the same route. Or when you're watching television, you always watch the same shows, or surfing the internet, or the places you go to eat for dinner, or the places you go if you go to a bar or a club or some form of entertainment. Usually all these things are ingrained habit patterns. We go to the gym, we generally do the same typical exercises. And starting there and breaking those habit patterns is a great way to start living more consciously. And that's the goal, is not to be a slave or a product of our conditioning or our ingrained habits and responses. The next thing is to do the opposite of what you normally do. There's a great Seinfeld episode where George Costanza says, everything I've done in my life hasn't worked. And I think Elaine or someone says, well, if everything hasn't worked, then why don't you do the opposite of what you normally do? And he just practices that. So doing something like that. If you struggle with perfectionism and you don't want to make mistakes, intentionally make mistakes. Or if you fear your boss and you're kind of guarded what you say and you feel a sense of stress, you don't have to let loose, but you start small. You might be a little bit more authentic in your communication, or you might not be so effusive in your praise of your boss, or kissing up to the boss. Whatever the case might be, we want to break those automated responses, and it can be done. It takes consciousness. It takes work. Sometimes it's just sitting with the discomfort and allowing it to be. So if we're a perfectionist and we need to correct something, we need to make something right, or if in your closet all the towels are lined up a certain way or the socks are put in a certain way, it's disrupting that, putting them a different way or out of order, and then feeling that discomfort or that tension that builds up and just sitting with it. And that's what you're doing is you're disrupting that perfectionist connection in your mind, that need to have control. And one of the greatest ways to break that is to loosen the noose of control of things in your life. Because when we feel we have control, we feel we're safe, we're protected, everything is in order, and there's not going to be any harm that comes to us. And this is a very natural thing to want as a human being, and it, again, is conditioned in us at a very young age. But it's enslaving. It's a prison. I found the more I try to control myself, others, things that I do, my productivity drops off significantly, because everything has to be perfect. You fear making a mistake or doing it wrong, and so you don't try as hard, and you just kind of give up on things. And the second thing is there is just a sense of uneasiness, unhappiness, a sense of discord, tension, not being at peace. And when you loosen and let go the need to control things, you feel a sense of freedom. And things could go wrong, you could do things wrong, you could say the wrong thing, and it's okay. And initially, yes, because it's so ingrained in us, you'll feel that resistance, that turmoil, and just sit with it. Allow it to be. You don't have to fight it, you don't have to resist it, you just observe it. It's almost like you're intentionally going after what makes you uncomfortable is a great way to break these ingrained, entrenched habit patterns that cause us so much suffering. And just allowing yourself to be, allowing life to be, allowing things to be, and acting from a deeper place of consciousness and awareness. And our lives are not ruled by automated conditioned responses. It's just, once you start tasting this, it's just amazing how much freer and happier and just at peace your life becomes. Appreciate your comments. Thanks again, everyone, for all your support and patience during my absence in the past, 6-7 months. That's about it. Have a great holiday. Bye-bye.